Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as players turn on Amorim, the media turns on Amorim, the latest on Mainu, more developments there, Instagram likes, he's our future captain according to Delo. I mean, his decision making is just terrible as ever, even in interviews, isn't it? And also the latest on the January transfer window, which almost does fit in with Mainu. Can, will and should Manchester United be letting Mainu go and making a big move in an area of the pitch that we know we are really struggling in? So good morning. Busy day for me today. If you're going to be on That's Football, it's basically 12:30 till 7:30 Premier League watch-alongs all day over there. But the United Stand will have an 8 o'clock show with me on it as well. So we are here servicing the best and biggest fan community in the world. And how are you feeling this morning? Your club won't do anything for you. They'll just come out with crap through Romano about backing the manager. On what grounds? I don't know. Look, I appreciate that there is a lot of different opinions out there. That's the way it should be. Absolutely the way it should be. But as I've said to you yesterday, I'm not being guilt-tripped anymore. I don't really care. I'm not bothered. Make your own minds up. I'm not here to influence yours. You make your own minds up. I'm not being guilt-tripped. The club's on its arse. I've never known it so bad, and I can't see a way out. So, unfortunately, that means I'm going to be very vocal every opportunity I get about the problems within this football club. And it seems to me that we're looking at players now who are doing what I'm surprised they haven't done already, to be fair. Starting to question the manager. We saw Mazraoui after the game on Thursday night, and I think it got missed in the result. He was asked a question about football being frustrating, and he said, yeah, it's more than sometimes though, isn't it? Because the question was, sometimes football is frustrating, and he said, yeah, it's more than sometimes now though, isn't it? And ultimately, I think the players are frustrated. Some of these players are top-level professionals. De Ligt's, Mazraoui's, Cunha's, Mbeumo's, even Bruno Fernandes. They're top-level players playing for a football club that's, an embarrassment. And I think, we're probably not far off that point. I mean, look, you hear rumours. I'm not here to discuss rumours. But I thought the Mazraoui comment was very clear. I thought the way the players behaved after the game was very clear. I think the way they've performed over the last few games has been very clear. They know the game. They've played the game and they know what it takes to make a change. When the fans are shifting towards Amorim out, and they are, whether it's 50-50 or it's beyond that, they are, it won't be long before the players go, hold on a minute, we're not taking the blame. We know what we need to do here. And I think when you look at that United side, I don't think a lot of them can play the way Amorim wants to play. Well, it's very obvious, isn't it? It's very, very obvious. And I do want to talk about the media. I thought there was a bit of a pile-on with Amorim yesterday, which is just the typical media of Manchester United, which we'll talk about in a moment. But let's stick with this. I think this is a significant issue. I think that the way that the players are performing on the pitch shows you that they are very, very, very low IQ players, which we've seen before. Rangnick came in, abandoned his plan after half an hour. Ten Hag abandoned his plan. And Amorim hasn't abandoned his plan, but may as well abandon his plan because he does not have a squad of players that can do anything with any level of intricacy. I mean, these are players that can't even keep possession. They can't even beat a low block. And that was before he came in. So I would suspect that there is a lot of frustration in that dressing room because their performances are poor. They're getting it in the neck again. And they will be looking for things to blame. And they will start to blame the system. They will start to blame the formation. They'll start to be like, well, if we played a back four, we'd be happier. And those sort of conversations will be going on. I don't think Bruno Fernandes is particularly happy in the midfield either. I don't think he is. I don't think that, I don't think Mbeumo looks completely comfortable as a number 10. I think he'd rather be out on the wing. I think there's a lot of players in that team that are unable to operate within this system. And it starts to get to that point now with the results and the games that we've got coming up. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that another bad result, another big pile on, and I think you've lost. I think the players are gone. I think what we're getting now is players are starting to look at the situation and going, I'm not performing in this situation. The team's not performing. We're heading down a similar track. I'm out. And we've seen that before. That's why Ollie lost to Watford. That's why Ten Hag lost to West Ham. That's why Mourinho lost to Liverpool, because it gets to a point where the players go, right, I'm out. Psychologically, I'm out. I don't need this shit. Obviously, it's my fault, but I'm not taking the blame. He can take the blame and we'll start again under another manager. And that is something that United fans cannot ignore, because that's happened at this football club for years. And some of those players that have done that before have done it before, are still here. So I think it's all one thing saying, why are Ineos backing Amorim? Should I back Amorim? Should Amorim be sacked? All those conversations are relevant, but the only people that are really going to make the difference are the players, and they are really, really incapable of playing to the standard of football that we want at the moment. And I don't think that's about to change anytime. So I would very much monitor that. And I thought what Mazraoui said after the game probably reflects a lot in the dressing room. I think they're starting to get frustrated themselves. And they're not robots. You know, I don't trust this squad. I don't trust this squad at all. But it would be a very unique situation if we had a set of players that didn't think I look shit in this system and I'm playing shit in this system and I don't want to play shit. You know, people want to go to work and be satisfied, and I think we're starting to see that frustration in the team now. Even on Thursday night, you know, Ahmad, I thought was okay, but watching it back, holding on to the ball for too long again. Definitely holding on to the ball. There was early passes into Mbermo that I think a month ago he was playing and now he's not. I don't know whether that's people overthinking it. I don't know whether that's people starting to get frustrated, but I do think that we are starting to see that frustration. Mark, not just Amorim's way to play this. Shower can't play any style of football. Well, no, I think this is a very relevant point, Mr. Saunders. I really do. I think that I've said this before. Change the manager, keep the manager. Whatever happens, I don't think this is going to get any better. I mean, there is no manager in the world that's going to come in and suddenly get that set of players to play really well, because they're not capable of it. They're just not. You know, it's the open heart surgery that somebody spoke about. I mean, how many years ago did Rangnick say open heart surgery? It's scary. It's scary that from that point, we're still in the same position now. Guten Tag, Mark. Amorim won't play Cobby no matter what. That's why just let him go and bring another who Amorim wants, and we'll play when it's needed, says Ayers. Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because look, this is still a conversation that is on the lips of every United fan. We spoke about it briefly last night. I thought that Amorim's interview, honestly, Amorim's interview after the game on Thursday night and the way he did that laugh about Mainu has not gone down very well. I've watched it and I'm sort of like, he could be laughing because it's another question about Mainu from journalists that I thought behaved badly after that game on Thursday. They're not United fans. They're just baying for blood, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But you could defend Amorim on that laugh, or you could be appalled by Amorim on that laugh. But the thing for me is the laugh is irrelevant. It's what he said, and I covered this last night, so I want to move on. But it's the way he said, well, I picked the team basically, and if people perform in training, then they're going to play. But 2 weeks ago, he said he was performing in training. And then he's like, Bruno's always fit, so that's why Mainu's not playing. And I'm like, but Bruno's shit in the midfield. So I just think, like, we're Manchester United and we've got a manager that's just being ridiculously stubborn. And you know what? I did think this about Mainu. Imagine if Mainu played on Monday night and played really, really well. I think that damages Amorim anyway. I think he's damaged now. I think the way he's behaved over the last 4 months, he can't. The only solution for him is to somehow turn this around without Mainu. Because if he brings him in and Mainu does well, Amorim doesn't recover from that either. Like, I was listening to somebody a few weeks ago, and they were saying he just needs to give Amorim a run in the. He just needs to give Mainu a run in the team now. And maybe a few weeks ago that might have been okay, but I think now, even if he did start picking Mainu, it's not like everyone would go, oh, at last, well done. I think they'd go, oh, this is why he's rubbish. Look how long it took him to use Mainu. 4 months we've wasted this season. So I think it's point of no return between Amorim and Mainu anyway. And Amorim's very stubborn. We saw what he did with Rashford. We saw what he did with Garnacho. We saw what he did with Anthony. And I think he was right to do all those things. But the problem with the stubborn manager is when they pick the wrong player to do it on. And maybe he is right on Mainu. You know, maybe Amorim gets sacked, Mainu plays in the midfield, and everyone goes, he was right. I mean, some of those things did happen with Ten Hag. But the issue with the Mainu situation is that it just can't be resolved now. Somebody was saying that Mainu liked to post on Instagram last night. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But I think that we have hit the point of no return. And I thought his interview, his answers to the questions about Mainu on Thursday were almost farcical, to the point like it was just like two people that don't want to talk to each other anymore. It was just like, I'm not, it was playground stuff. And we're Manchester United. And we've also got that at the top of the club as well, haven't we? Because we've now got an ownership model that picked Amorim, they picked Amorim, know that if they sack him, they basically say they're incompetent. So we've got these two ridiculous scenarios now where we've got a manager that won't pick a player on stubbornness and an ownership that won't sack a manager on stubbornness. And I'm sorry, in any walk of life, in any business, in any relationship, stubbornness doesn't actually serve you well. It doesn't. It doesn't. Like, I know people that have died not talking to family members on stubbornness. Well, they're not going to solve it now. That's not how it works. And we're back to football, though. Stubbornness is not the way to run a business, and it's not the way to run a football club, and it's not the way to run a football team. And that's the fundamentals of what we've got going on at Manchester United at the moment. So this is what Chris Wheeler has said overnight. He said, Mainu's hopes of leaving Manchester United in January depend on whether Man United can bring in midfielders this January transfer window. They obviously did block his departure in the summer because they couldn't get agreements with Baleba or Conor Gallagher. United do admire Anderson and Wharton, but could come back for Baleba or Gallagher, and has also talked about Tyler Adams and João Gomez. So, again, you've just got this really, really strange situation whereby Mainu clearly doesn't have a future under Ruben Amorim, and it can't be resolved. But the club might be so stupid as to say, we can't let you go because we're not buying until the summer. I mean, how ridiculous is that? It's like being in a marriage with somebody that you don't want to be with, but saying, you know what, you're spending Christmas with me because I'm not divorcing you till the summer because I want to start, I want to lose a bit of weight for the summer and get a bit of a tan and some nice shorts. And then I'm going to start looking to mingle. But until then, you've got to stay. I don't like you. I don't actually want to see anything. I don't want, we'll have separate bedrooms. We'll eat separately. We won't have anything to do with each other, but you're staying till the summer because I want to get a tan and I want to lose a bit of weight for the summer because that's the best time to be single looking to mingle. It's not fair, is it? It's not fair on that person who is saying, I want to leave now. And you're going, yeah, I don't like you either. Yeah, it's mutual. You can say you want to leave. Trust me, your face makes me want to throw up. You know what? Your food's shit. Your personality's shit. I can't stand you. But we're not doing anything until the summer. And I'm not talking about Mainu there. I'm talking about the relationship analogy. And I do think it's unfair. I do think it's unfair. If Man United say you're not going anywhere till the summer because we're not going to get a replacement till the summer, that's just ridiculous. So look, I hope for his sake that he gets a move in January because they'll be queuing up for him. But the question is, can Man United bring somebody in? And I do think, you know what, I almost want to whisper this, but I don't do that. I mean, look, Baz says Mainu's slow and has a weak mentality. Fine. I like the alternative view. I want to hear from the Amorim inners as well. But look, I think like Kaj says, Amorim outers are acting like we're 19th. We're 2 points off top four and doing better than Slot, Howe and Frank. And that's why this football club struggles. Because we have people like Kaj whose standards have dropped so far that they come up with absolute nonsense like that. So, Kaj, you're basically, Kai, you're basically saying we shouldn't be critical of Amorim because we're acting like we're 19th. We're 2 points off top four and we're doing better than Slot, Howe and Frank. Oh, and mate, thank you, mate. I feel so much better this morning now. Standards in the sewer. Standards in the fucking sewer. I cannot believe that people actually subscribe to that point of view. But you know what? I've had my say. It's the United stand. And that stands as an opinion, and some of you might agree with it because that's how opinions work. So there you go. There are people out there saying, I'm Amorim in because we're not 19th, we're 2 points off top four, and we're doing better than Slot, Howe and Frank. I mean, I would answer calmly and say, we've taken 1 point from 6 at home to West Ham and Everton. We've played absolutely shite. Our number one identifiable attacking trait is Delo in a towel, throwing a long ball. Our football is atrocious. Our team is disjointed. and there is no vision of this changing in the future. I don't care whether we're 2 points off top. I'd still be saying the same. There is no sustainability, there is no plan, and the football belongs down the toilet with a big fresh turd. I don't want to be 2 points off top four with this vision. I'd rather be mid-table with a bunch of kids playing good football, thinking in 6 months we're going to be really good. I don't recognise your positivity, Kai, but some people will. I don't look at league tables and go, we're 2 points off four, because I guarantee you we're 4 points off 15th or something like that. So I'm sorry, it's not that basic for me, and it maybe isn't for some other people. When I look at Manchester United, the principles of Manchester United, what my granddad taught me about Manchester United, the Busby Babes, George Best, Dennis Law, all these players, is that we're not just a name. We're not just a football club. And the Ineoses and the Glazers of this world might want to make us into just a name, just a business. We're not. We're more than that. Manchester United is the greatest football story ever told. We have principles, we have standards, we have beliefs. We are not just a football team. Tragically, people died playing for this football team. We rose from that. We've had ups and downs. And we play a brand of football that gets people on the edge of their seats. That is it. Businesses have principles. Football clubs have passion. We are a passionate football club, and we should be adhering to those things. Barcelona do it. Other football clubs do it. Why are we, as a football club, being allowed, and I think this is a great point, why is Sir Jim Ratcliffe allowing Ruben Amorim to let this team chuck long throw-ins into the box? Why is he allowing them to hit long balls? Why is he allowing fans to turn up and be bored? Since when was that okay at Manchester United? And that's Glazonomics for you. That's what happens when a bunch of people who've got nothing to do with the football club, who live on the other side of the world, who are business people, grab hold of your club and turn it into a franchise. We have lost our soul. Our soul disappeared years ago. I want that soul back. So I don't care if we're 2 points off fucking fourth place. I'd rather be 2 points off the bottom, building something for the future, playing good football, entertaining, than where we are at the moment. Long answer, but there you go. I just don't know why we've lost that. I mean, forget your signings, forget Mainu, forget Amorim, forget Ineos. Why has Manchester United had its soul ripped out and flushed down the toilet? Like, is it so hard to say, whatever happens, we've got to get the ball down the wing, we've got to get crosses in the box, we've got to take people on, we've got to take risks, because that's what this football club is. And as part of that, we've got to be really good at promoting, developing and nurturing youth. And none of it's happening at the moment. Hi, Mark. You're not far off. We're actually 2 points off 14th as well, says Stig. Yeah, there you go. People never look behind at the danger, do they? Umbros says, no matter how right it may be to fire the coach and sell the players, it's like fixing a window when the roof is leaking. And Canna Dave says, under Sir Alex Ferguson, one loss was unacceptable. That should be our standard. Something has to change by January. And Ramazan says, they wouldn't cash in on Bruno, but they seem willing to cash in on Mainu, make it make sense. I mean, I think that is, Luke, thanks for being a member for 3 months. I think that's a great point as well. You have an opportunity in the summer to take £90 million for a 31-year-old that you're not even going to use in his best position. You say no because he's so important to the team. And then Mainu, who's 20, who's come through the youth, who is a very talented player, yeah, he can go. Again, it sort of flies in the face of what I was just talking about there before. But as I said, they've got to be able to let him go in January. Obviously, I want him to stay from a Man United point of view, but we can't treat a player like that. And also, I do worry about the mental state of Mainu. Like, you know, they're not robots. He hasn't had that contract that he should have. Like, he's still on the contract that's not very good. So, and people say, well, you know, it's still 30 grand a week. Come on, you know, he's not had a new contract. He's not getting game time. He's almost being ridiculed now by the manager. I do worry about what we're doing to a 20-year-old kid here. I do. And people will go, oh, come on, he's living the life of Riley. He's, he's in a bubble. He's a professional footballer. He'll be absolutely fine. Maybe he will. But it still doesn't, to me, it still doesn't mean that the way that we've treated him is the right way. I don't think we have. Luke, thank you very much. If Mainu leaving is the condition to sign a midfielder in January, we'd all do it ASAP. This is media spin against Amorim. Mainu was bad last year, says Caleb too. Mate, if you want to back this manager at the moment, which you clearly are, that's absolutely fine. What some people don't understand is, and I said it after the West Ham game, I don't care what happens to Amorim anymore. I really don't. I don't care what happens. Ideally, he turns it around and we don't sack a manager. That's my stance. That's what I would like to happen. But how wishful is that thinking? If they sack him tomorrow, I would say, well, mate, you can't complain. You can't complain. I mean, I'd love you to complain and tell us the truth of what's gone on. There's no doubt you've had a few, bad decisions go your way in relation to where's your midfielder. But maybe he didn't want a midfielder. Maybe he said, I don't want a midfielder. I'd rather keep Bruno. I don't know. But the reality is, his win ratio this season in the Premier League is virtually 40%. The football is atrocious, and he's picking people like Bruno Fernandes and Dalot out of position. I'm sorry, if he gets the sack, I've seen better managers than him get sacked in the last 10 years for less. Like, you think about Mourinho, he got sacked for less. You think about Ollie, he got sacked for less. And I would argue that Ten Hag got sacked for less. So, if he got sacked... There was a great comment yesterday on X, and I wish I knew the account. They basically said, for anybody that doesn't think the standards of this club are worse than ever, Amorim is sat there a year in with a record and a team that's performing worse than any manager we've sacked in the last 10 years. And I thought, hang it in the Louvre. It's not wrong. But in fairness, he has only been here a year. So in a year, has he been given a fair crack of the whip? That is a fair point. As I said, the ideal scenario is that he somehow turns this around and we don't have to sack a manager. The dream scenario is Ineos and the Glazers piss off and we get a proper owner in that, but that's never going to happen. As I say, I don't see a pathway out of this. I see another Solskjaer coming in. It could be a Southgate. I don't know. We play really basic football and get results, and some of you will love that, but I don't know. I really don't know. Mainu just doesn't have the quality to play in the Premier League. We should cash in and invest in a world-class wing-back instead, says Enchanted Angel. I find this Mainu doesn't have the quality to play in the Premier League thing absolutely laughable, right? And I'll tell you why. There's only one person you're trusting on that opinion, and his name's Ruben Amorim. So that's fine. That's fine, but who is it that's telling us that Mainu's not good enough for the Premier League? With his actions, it's Ruben Amorim. He won't use him. So some of you agree with that. Oh, he's slow. He's not good enough for the Premier League. So you agree with Amorim, the manager of Man United, that Mainu's not good enough for the Premier League. Some of us go, well, hold on a minute. He's 20. He's going to get quicker and better and stronger. That's factual. That's just basics. As you get older from 17 to 22, you get stronger and quicker and everything like that, unless you've had a really bad injury. So, Mainu's not good enough to play in the Premier League, apparently. But 18 months ago, he was playing holding midfielder for Manchester United and England. So he clearly is good enough, because that wasn't a dream. It actually did happen. So, what you're basically saying is you agree with Mainu, you agree with Amorim that Mainu's not good enough to play in the Premier League, despite the fact that he was. And he's only 20. That's fine and well, and you might be correct. And I'm not sitting here saying you're going to get proven wrong. My issue with it would be is that you are trusting a guy that picks Bruno Fernandes in midfield every week, who in about 14 games has factually had about 5 or below out of 6, so shit. And also puts Dalot at left wing back, who's not even a very good right wing back. So you're asking me to agree with Amorim on Mainu when I don't agree with Amorim on Bruno and Dalot. Maybe the guy's got it wrong on Mainu as well. All I'm saying is maybe the guy has got it wrong. Why should I trust Amorim on Mainu? You know what worries me is that Mainu gets in this team and absolutely proves him wrong, or Mainu goes on loan and absolutely proves him wrong. And I cannot judge Mainu until he's given that opportunity either in our midfield or at somebody else's football club. And anybody who says, well, he played against Grimsby or he played half an hour here or there, look at Xerxes. Xerxes, his first game against Everton was shit. Absolute shit. And I said, don't judge him. He's hardly had any football. He won't be match fit. First half against Crystal Palace, shit. That's a game and a half where he was miles off. Second half against Palace and against West Ham, a lot better. So if Xerxes needs a game and a half to start getting up to speed with things, then why doesn't Mainu need a game and a half to start getting up to speed with things? And actually, he's playing in a harder position because he's playing in the midfield. So until he gets game time, I don't think you can judge Mainu. Your thoughts on Pochettino, says Umbros. I never wanted Pochettino. Because I wanted Ten Hag, and I stand by that. But I don't know. I don't know. Look, I'd take Pochettino over Southgate. Another midfielder in January will still face the same Mainu problem as they will face same overload playing alongside Bruno, because Bruno will certainly get picked, says Ayisim. I think that's a very logical point. Sam says, Amorim keeps saying I want to win, but loses to 10 men, Everton at home and draws to West Ham. He sounds like a fucking broken record. Thank you, Sam. And Hollis says, so we'll put up with the Glinios for 10 years, but a manager comes in, gets 3 or 4 players. After we all said 6 or 7, he sat Casemiro for months as well. It'll come. And Mainu just... So, look, interesting. And look, as you'll notice, I don't sit here telling you that any of you are wrong. And actually, in relation to Amorim, I've got to say, the press conference after the game on for West Ham, I actually felt sorry for Amorim, because I don't actually think these journalists have got the best interests of Man United at heart. I think they've got the best interests of their editor, and that's the only thing they're interested in. And some people were championing some of these journalists for going in on Amorim on Thursday night. But you know what? I've got no respect for those journalists at all, because it's always the same with them. It's very basic, and they're just looking to, trip up a manager. The reality is, none of them ever say anything about the Glazers, nothing about Ineos. It's always about the manager. I've not seen a decent article written about Ineos or Glazers for months from any of these journalists. They're just pile-on merchants. And at least the conversations we have here, there are people having a very serious conversation about Amorim, but it's always balanced with, there's a bigger problem at this football club. So these journalists, when they get Amorim in a room and they all gang up on him and start, going on and on about, oh, you said that word. I mean, there was a question about him saying a certain word a number of times. And I thought, hold on a minute. I'm not happy with Amorim. And a lot of you aren't happy with Amorim. But let's not forget, this is not his first language. We had this with Ten Hag as well. Sometimes when you're speaking a foreign language or a second language, you use words that we don't use as a filler, as a bit of time to think, because when I'm talking to you now, I'm not thinking. English is my language. It's what I was taught as a baby. It's natural to me. There are no pauses. There's nothing. If I was speaking to you in Portuguese, I would be having to think about what I'm saying because it's not my first language. So I thought the pile-on Amorim on Thursday night was poor, really, because there's better questions that could be asked, and also there's never a question about why he didn't get a midfielder in January. I mean, if I'm in that press conference on Thursday night after the game, I can go along with the crowd and go, why aren't you picking Mainu? Why aren't you picking Mainu? Oh, you've said that word a lot of times. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Or I could just go, Ruben, I've got a question for you. Obviously, results are not acceptable. You're under a lot of pressure at the moment. The midfield is a really key issue. I know every one of my colleagues has asked you about Mainu, but can I ask you, clearly you're using Casemiro and Bruno every week. You don't use Ugarte and Mainu. Why did you not buy a midfielder in the summer transfer window? Baleba, you were in talks with apparently, Conor Gallagher, but why was a midfielder not bought? Was that your decision? Oh my God, you've just dropped the best question in the last 6 months that every United fan wants to know. I've got another 2 as well. Yeah. No, you shut up about Mainu. I want to know, Ruben, again, why didn't you buy a midfielder in the summer transfer window, and was that your decision? Because ultimately, it looks like a really bad one. Let's get your answer to that. I mean, it's just bloody easy, isn't it? It's easy. Oh, also, I've got another one as well. Sesko, arguably not your first choice striker. I mean, you can answer that one if you want, but we know that you tried to get Liam Delap, Gyökeres, Ekitike. Sesko, very inexperienced, needs time. Why is he your only striker? He's injured now, you don't have a striker. Was the decision to let Rasmus go when he would have stayed and fought for his place a bad one? And was that yours as well? And also, can I just ask, why Lemens, who's come in and done really well, why did you only sign him on the last day of the transfer window? Was that a panic signing? Because you dropped points not having a proper goalkeeper. Was it your idea to not get Onana replaced until the last day of the transfer window? Or was that the club as well? You know, these are questions that would be very interesting to know when our manager is on thin ice. Like, and there's loads you could ask. But we don't ask those questions because we get these bloody playground journalists who just go after the most basic thing. I mean, they should all join Luckhurst at The Sun because it's just crap journalism. And there is so much they could be asking about Ineos, about the Glazers, about the state of the football club, because I know for a fact, and you know for a fact, that there's multiple people very unhappy at that football club about how it's being run. The very basics are, and this has to go hand in hand with Amorim, we've had a shockingly bad transfer window in relation to, we've still got a lot of players that should have been moved on. We didn't do anything about the midfield. The goalkeeper thing was very, very late. There is no backup striker. So this summer transfer window that we cooked in, we definitely didn't. Why did that happen? We've got nearly £1 billion worth of debt. We're not in Europe. We're nowhere near Europe this year. The football is crap. Senior players on the leadership team, I wouldn't trust them to bloody make a bloody cup of tea at the moment. They're useless. So everywhere you look at that, there are no young players coming through. There's no great talent in that team. What are the positives about Man United at the moment? You know, and not even like, oh, it's okay. Like, what are the big positives about Man United and what are the negatives? And I tell you now, you're building, the negative tower is like the Empire State Building. And the positives, you know, it's like a mine. You're going down, like you're digging, trying to find them. But the negatives are stretching out high in front of us. There's no positives around Man United, and there's a massive list of negatives. And I tell you what, I get the word out. An analyst would look at Man United with no passion or emotion and go, well, this is only going to go one way. You've got a huge pile of things that are really bad, and you've got no positives. So if you think you're going to move up the league table, I'm sorry, you've got to remove your negatives and build some positives for that swing to happen. It's like you know what? It's like a set of scales, right? This side is the positives and this side is the negatives. And the only way that's going to go up is by removing negatives, and then it starts, the weight starts to balance out. It's so logical. And you do get people who go, we're only 2 points off fourth. We're doing better than Thomas Frank. I mean, is that what Man United is now? 2 points off fourth FC. Better than Spurs FC. I mean, we used to be a club, even in the late 80s when I was a kid, first getting into football, you'd start the season thinking maybe this could be United's year. That's just the way it was. This is the first season in my life I started it and went, it's the first season in my life I've never put us in the top 4. And that wasn't being sensationalist. That's the first season in my life I've sat there and gone, we're not getting top 4. That's not even in our parameter to do that. I mean, God, what happened to this football club? Bradley says, I want Ancelotti. He's the Don, the aura, builds with the tools in the shed instead of the tools in the shop. Also would sort out the players' egos. Caleb says, such good questions. If we were Bayern, we would know the answers to these types of questions because the owners have the nuggets to face the media. The reason they don't ask the question right is because I could be journalist A at a credible outlet who has a very good relationship with the club. Money might be changing hands. I don't know. You know, certain news outlets do pay for information. I am not allowed to ask anything that's going to cause a problem with that relationship. I will get the sack. So I cannot do anything other than within the parameters of what suits the club and my newspaper. That is client journalism. Most journalists in football are client journalists now. And what client journalism is, we've got a bit of information for you to put out. Oh, thanks so much. In return, we'll give you an interview with this player. Brilliant, thank you. And that's all we get now. We don't get proper journalism. At a time where football needs proper journalism, there's so much going on. FIFA, UEFA, Premier League, Man United. But we don't get proper journalism anymore. Why can't you send Beth in with good questions? We're not allowed into the press conference, mate. I don't know where you've been, but we're not allowed into Premier League press conferences. Yeah, it's a closed shop. Let's get rid of Ruben, keep these players, give them a new system, let Mainu play every game. Player power came back, it's done as well for a decade, says Raphael. If the owners spent the dollar needed, Amorim would be flying, says Ross Stephen. Class of 99 says, does it only apply to Mainu? We can say Rashford and Anthony proved him wrong. Some just using Mainu as a stick to beat him with. I'm Amorim out regardless. Thank you very much. Since you already called him a mistake on X, just own it and say Amorim out. Isn't fence sitting a bit hypocritical, says Kai. Oh, Kai's come back. He stood up again. He got sat down so much with his low standards. This is the guy that said we're only 2 points off fourth. Things are improving. We're doing better than Howe and Frank. He's come back. He's got a bit of bite. He says, you called Amorim a mistake on X. Own it and say Amorim out. Isn't fence sitting a bit hypocritical? Mate, I've been doing this for 10 years. If you can explain why I'm sitting on the fence, then I'm more than happy to justify it. But I've done 3 videos since West Ham, and in every single one of them, I've explained my stance very, very clearly. I don't care if Amorim gets sacked. I don't care. I'm not bothered. If he did get sacked, I don't think anybody could be sympathetic to it. However, my preference would be that we don't sack another manager and by some miracle he turns it around. That's not sitting on the fence. That's just me not saying 2 words that I find very, very basic. I don't actually think saying Amorim out does anything, because a lot of people who are Amorim out, you'll ask them who they're going to get as a manager and they go, I don't know. I'm just angry. So, you know, I like a little bit more depth to what I'm saying. I'm absolutely fed up of the football club. I'm absolutely fed up of Amorim. I'm so fed up of how we play football. I'm so tired of those players. But I don't blame Amorim exclusively for it. You know, I'd sack Bruno Fernandes before I sacked Ruben Amorim. I'd chuck the Glazers and Ineos in prison before I sacked Ruben Amorim for crimes against this football club. So I don't sit here getting any joy out of shouting Amorim out, because I don't blame him exclusively for the problems. I think he's a symptom of a disease that will continue long after he's been removed. You know, you can remove the tissue, but you won't remove the cancer. And the cancer is not Ruben Amorim at that football club. So I don't really get a lot of satisfaction out of saying sack a manager. It might need to happen. I think it probably will happen, by the way. But my dream would be that he turns it around and we start playing good football. Do I think that's going to happen? I think that's very wishful thinking. Do I care if he gets sacked? Well, he probably deserves it. That's not sitting on the fence, mate. That's having an in-depth conversation, which somehow you do not seem to be able to understand. But that's not my problem. And I won't be guilt-tripped into whatever it is you think. Does it only... we've done that one as well. Kai, thank you very much for your super chat, by the way. Today, Delo said he sees Mainu as a United captain. I saw that totally, Alfie. So Delo said that he thinks that Mainu is a future captain of Manchester United. I mean, if you ever, I mean, I wouldn't get into a car with Delo. With decision making like that, I wouldn't get into a car with him. I mean, what is he talking about? You know, the guy that's giving you a career will not pick Mainu, but he's a future captain for Man United. I mean, the guy's so bloody clueless. I mean, Amorim is giving you a career. And then you've just gone and said that Mainu, a player he doesn't want to give a career to, could be a future captain. Well, I hope you get dropped on Monday now for that. What 3 questions would you ask Amorim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe? Well, I've just done about 3 there, Old Trafford. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I wouldn't even bother asking a question now. I think after 2 years, I know the answers. I'd have asked him some questions in the first 6 months. I've got no questions for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's his problem to prove us wrong now. At the very start, I'd have been very interested about, when are Man United going to be back on top? Are you going to spend on a team that needs spending? Those sort of things. I think 2 years down the line, it's very, very clear to me that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a Glazer puppet. It's very, very clear to me that the only win there is to build the stadium and make a lot of money. That's all they're interested in. And it's very clear to me that he's got absolutely no clue about running a football club. Look, respect to what he's done. He's a billionaire from nothing, and he's clearly an expert in the field that he chose. But the 3, I don't need to ask him any questions because, in my opinion, it's all about building the stadium. He's a Glazer puppet, and he's got no clue about football. So why would I ask him any questions just to get lied to? That's where I sit on that. Victoria says, it's funny how you behave to me when I told you about Amorim and his awful tactics. No progress, no performances. He's truly an awful coach. I can't think of an answer. I can't think of an answer, but I don't have all the answers. He's been here a year. Pardon me, in his first 6 to 8 months going, he needs a summer transfer window, he needs a pre-season. I think since the start of this season, I haven't really spoken about anything other than he needs to start delivering results, and I think he will. But obviously that's wrong. But I do think there was a pile-on at the end of the season that I wouldn't acknowledge as being I told you so, because I do think he needed a summer transfer window and I do think he needed a pre-season. It hasn't worked, but I still stand by that. He has been lucky with all the other teams' inconsistencies, Liverpool being one of them. Without that Liverpool win, he would have been gone, says Mr. B. Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're all. I mean, God, if you think. I mean, this is nothing. This is just natural debate. I haven't got a problem with it. I actually enjoy what Kai said. I like what Victoria says. I enjoy it because it means that people have different opinions. I haven't got a problem with it. It might get a bit heated, but ultimately we're just competing with our own opinions, which is what should happen. You get on yourself on X at the moment or Twitter. It's a bloody cesspool. Like, it's a horrible, horrible situation. But as I said, I think the truth will set you free. And since West Ham, I'm not being guilt-tripped. I'll say it again. I am not being guilt-tripped. I have my own opinions and I'm going to give them. And if you don't like them, create your own. But I actually feel like I really wish this could turn around. I really wish it could work. It's the best scenario. Of course it is. It costs us less money. We start winning. Everything moves in the right direction. I wish that would happen. But the reality is, if he got sacked tomorrow, I can't sit here and go, he didn't deserve it, because we're Manchester United and there should be standards and we have no standards. So, but do I think it would get any better? Not to the level I want it to get to. Not to the level I want it to get to, really. Vipal, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Daniel says, I'd get rid of Bruno, Delot, Shaw, Casemiro, Maguire, Mount before getting rid of Amorim. Main problem will always be the Glazers and Ineos. And that's the problem, Daniel. And that's the sympathy I have. I'd get rid of a lot of players and certainly the Glazers and Ineos before I got rid of Amorim. Absolutely. But that, unfortunately, is not how it works. When things go wrong, you keep a manager or you sack a manager. They're always going to be the thing that gets removed. I want half that team gone. I want these owners gone, and they deserve to go before the manager. I mean, the Glazers have sacked every single manager. They're still here. The players have sacked every single manager. Some of them are still here. How is that right? How is it right that it's always the manager that goes and not the people who make the decisions or perform on the pitch? But that's the stupidity of this football club. We just keep sacking the managers when actually we all know the real problems, but we can't remove the real problems. And I wish we bloody could, but we can't. We can't. And I see a lot of people saying that. Don't sack Amorim, get rid of these players, get rid of these owners. But we have no say in that. We can't do it. So the choice is stick with the manager or bring a new one in. And it's not fair, but that's just the way it's going to be until we get a miracle, you know? I also find it sad that people have revised opinions on Mainu. He's one of the brightest graduates and he's truly gifted. I hope he stays and can flourish in the midfield three. This guy bossed it for England. And Victoria, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think the midfield three is part of the problem. There aren't many midfielders in the modern game that can play in a midfield two. I also think that there's a valid point to say there's not. I remember this being said by Pedro, the sporting journalist, right at the start. And he said, it's worked really well at Sporting, but I think he called it a positive, but a negative as well. He said, if Amorim gets his system working, it's really, really good. But the profile of player for the system is very unique. Well, we don't have a free pick in the European market. We're not big enough to do that. So I don't think there are many wide players in European football or world football that can play his system. And also, we're not a football club that can just go out and buy them. I mean, I look at someone like Mendes at PSG. I think he'd be perfect for the left-hand side for Man United, but you can't just go and buy him. So if you play 4-3-3, there's loads of left-backs, there's loads of right-backs, but if you play the way Amorim plays, there isn't loads of those wide players that need to be good going forward and good defensively. There's not loads of them, and they come at a premium. So again, I would say this is part of the mistake, Kai, because we have owners that looked at Amorim before they appointed him and went, that's the guy. And this is what we said when we appointed him. I'm quite surprised because he doesn't play a 4-3-3. But if they're bringing him in, they must have $500 million to spend. And they didn't. They didn't. Amorim was a very exciting appointment if you had the $500 million to build the team. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the money, which goes back to what I said loads of times. I think they just went, he's a good manager, that'll work. And they didn't realise, it's like getting Lewis Hamilton and going, why aren't you driving fast? Well, where's my Ferrari? You know, we didn't understand that good manager doesn't mean good team. There's a reason he was a good manager. You've got to give him the ingredients. And we haven't. And the wide profile, that's very unique in his system. Very unique. If you're playing a 4-3-3, if you're Liverpool, you've got Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, and you've got Robertson and, Bradley behind them. Even Man City, you've got two people ahead of your fullbacks. In a United system, the wide player's got to do both roles. How many players in world football can do that? You might be able to name me 20, but how do we buy them? And also, I think in the midfield, playing a midfield two is very unique. And most players are used to playing in a midfield three. So we're not just trying to build a team on the cheap. We're trying to find very, very niche profile players of which they're not. Man United need players there's loads of them because we can't go and pick from the best. We can't pick the best apples from the tree. So we've got a manager that plays very unique players where there's not an abundance of them. We don't really have the money to get them, and most of them are unattainable anyway. And it's a problem. The 3-4-3 is a problem. The system is a problem because without the players, it doesn't work. And finding the players isn't easy. But that's on Barada. That's on Wilcox. That's on Sir Jim Radcliffe. That's not actually on Amorim. Amorim's at Sporting doing his job. Man United come along and say, we want you. They sell him the dream. He comes in and they've not thought it through. Where are the two midfielders that can actually play Amorim's system? We haven't got them. Where are the two wide players that can actually play Amorim's system? We haven't got them. Have we got the three centre-backs that can play his system? We've got a kid in goal. We've got a kid up front. I mean, there is a very valid point to say Amorim deserves to lose his job. But there's a very valid point to say he never should have got the job in the first place because these owners just haven't got a clue what it takes to build an Amorim side. And that would be my big statement of the morning, is that we're never going to get him the players he needs. He's never going to have the players he needs because we're not going to get them. So why is he here? And we can all blame Amorim for this, that, and the other. For me, if he's to go, it's because it's not working and it's never going to work. It's not because it couldn't have worked. It's because it's not going to work with these owners because they don't know what they're doing. But again, that's too niche for some people. This is why I don't like the words Amorim out, because it's just so, it's two words, it's not layered, and it's just very get him out. You know, if he's to be sacked, it will be because we're about 6 players short of what he absolutely needs in his system. You need 2 midfielders that can play that system. We don't have them. You need 2 wide players that can play that system. We don't have them. And they are ridiculously niche. Most teams play with a midfield 3. Most teams play with a wing back and a winger. We don't. Where are these players? And secondary to that, where's the striker that can play this system? Because I don't think it's Sesko. There's too many problems that they're not going to solve. Caleb says, I missed my chat earlier, I think, but what is your KPI for Amorim now? Because it was touching distance of top 4 by Christmas at the start of the season. Mate, I actually, can I be completely honest? I don't care. I don't, at this moment in time, I do not care because, you know, win games would be great. But I just don't see this situation improving. We're just so far from where we need to be. I don't see it improving. I just don't. All I want at the moment is Man United to win games. You know, that's the only positive I can find. But major, you know, looking forward positives, I don't see them. I don't see how we're going to get any better. We've got the Empire State Building of negatives and we've got no positives. That to me is not going to change while that pile is that big. And I mean, look, if we can win games of football somehow, it's always going to be a positive. But I can't see any vision. I can't. It's like he's sending a team out to try and get a result, and we should be more than that. So unless there's some big signings coming in January, which I don't think there will be, I don't see this situation improving. Look, one thing I would say is Ineos don't want to sack him. If they don't want to sack him, I would be saying to them, you're going to have to sack him at some point. This is only going one way. And the only way you get him out of this is by giving him the players he needs. Now, have you got the money to do that? If they went out and bought him 2 or 3 players in January that instantly come into that team and make it better, there might be a chance. But I don't know whether they'll do that. Cantona made his debut this day back in '92, says Sound Dog. Oh, it makes me sad. You know, the underlying issue which has started to creep in again is toxicity. I may be wrong, says Sanch. Well, what's toxicity, mate? Like, we're losing games, we're playing shit football. Is toxicity just not reality now? It's not toxic. I mean, I think some people just throw words around and they don't think. It's not negative and toxic to be moaning. That's standards now. You're confusing toxicity and negativity with reality and standards. Like, it's not toxic to be moaning about playing shit football with a shit team and losing and not winning. That's not toxic, that's standards. Toxic would be being second in the league, 3 points off the top, playing good football and people moaning about not being top. You know, Arsenal fans do that. That's toxic, you know, when you're finishing second and you're still moaning about stuff, like, but you can see the progress. Like, we've got no that's not toxic, I don't think. I think it's, you know, people who've just about had enough. We've never been as bad as we are now, I don't think. I know you want what's best, but we need to trust the manager. No, we don't. No, we don't. Trust is earned, mate. You can trust the manager if you want. You can trust the owners if you want. Don't tell me I've got to trust the manager. Well, why? Why are you overlooking Amorim's stubbornness, says Tilak. I'm not. About half an hour ago, I literally spoke about his stubbornness being a massive problem. I find it farcical that our youth players don't play the first team system, says Average. I mean, yeah, I agree. Completely agree. Mbappe boy says, I know you know wants what's best, but we need to trust the manager and he decides Mainu's not good enough and we need to go with it. It's not going to change. Well, absolutely, I've answered this question. We don't need to trust the manager on Mainu because if you trust the manager on Mainu, do you trust the manager on Delot at left wing back, chucking long throws in? Do you trust Bruno in the midfield? Exactly my point. I would trust him if there was a reason to trust him, if he'd earned that trust, but he's not earning the trust, is he? Hope you're well. Mark and United Stand always a great show, says Daniel. Fact, there's doubt about beating Wolves, says it all, says Keel. Sam says Bruno is the problem. Awful against West Ham and doesn't work. Why isn't he getting dropped? Maybe Bruno's the manager, Sam. Maybe Bruno's the real manager. Nick says, United fans are ridiculous and I'm one. 4 weeks ago, the club was turning around and on the move. Now we're firing again. Where was Arteta year one? No, Nick. In fairness, I think that's you and some. Remember after the Spurs game, which was over 4 weeks ago, I went mad and people said, you're being too negative. So I'm not being in that club of 4 weeks ago saying the club was turning it around. I distinctly remember me and some others after the Spurs game going mad saying, here we are again, light switch FC, we're not going to amount to anything, it's the same old problems creeping in. So some people were saying we're back and talking about haircuts and stuff. Some of us were like, nah, I don't think we're back at all. We can't, look, we're all entitled to opinions, and thank God we all have different ones. You can't just chuck an entire fan base and say 4 weeks ago we were all being really positive and now we want to sack a manager. I think some people were being really positive and are really less disappointed. And I think some people were saying, I can see the signs of last year creeping in, and we're now going, oh yes, we were right. Question for Amorim Inners, says Theo, will you be Amorim out if we don't beat Wolves? I'm not worried about Wolves. The 3 games that worry me the most are Bournemouth, even though they're shit, Bournemouth, Villa away and Newcastle. Those 3 games, we have to beat Wolves, and I think we will beat Wolves. But Bournemouth, Newcastle and Villa, they're the 3 games that worry me the most, because if we can get 4 wins in a row, happy days, but I don't think we will. The Glazers were blessed with Sir Alex Ferguson, now expect every manager to be him, says Old Trafford Malik. What if he gets 4 players and we still play long dead balls and throw-ins? What if his system and tactics don't work in the league? Very good question, LZ. What is his style of play in the Premier League? I know what it was at Sporting, but maybe he's never going to do that. Kai says inconsistency is part of growing pains. But we're not inconsistent, mate. We're not inconsistent. We're very consistent. We're playing shit football with no vision and we're getting bad results. That's consistent. That's not inconsistent. It's consistent in something we don't want, but it's consistent. In my opinion. Right, thanks everyone for watching. I've got a very busy day today, but we have got an 8 o'clock show. Saturday night live at 8 o'clock, United stand. But drop in and out on That's Football today. I'm live for Villa against Arsenal, 12:30. I'm live for the 3 o'clock, Sunderland at Man City, Chelsea go to Bournemouth. Spurs play Brentford, and then 5:30, Leeds against Liverpool. So it's a very busy day on That's Football. If you're watching all 3 with me, great. If you're watching 1 or 2, great, tune in. But we will be back at 8 o'clock as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Fantastic show this morning. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Make sure you're subscribing to the video and smashing a like. Over 8,000 live viewers this morning. It shows a lot of people care. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you're not watching live, leave your comments as always. And I'll speak to you in just over an hour's time on That's Football, but back here at 8. Take care.